Thank you very much for the invitation. Today we've heard a lot of very inspiring presentations. Most of it are connected with measuring, monitoring, fact-checking, and what Russia is doing, how we can observe that, how we can understand that, analyze, and take all the outcomes from it. Let me challenge you by my presentation to talk about different side of the coin. Because from my perspective, I was researching that issue, and I'm also in several projects which are working on FIMI. I will just explain what it is. We are aware that on one side of the coin is what you are doing. I mean, most of you, and today we've heard, are doing fact-checking, looking closely what kind of Russia, but not only Russia, but China and others actors are doing when it comes to disturbance our informational sphere. But other coin is much harder to do. And looking from inside, I can tell you that there are lots of efforts to not only counter act to Russia, Chinese and others misinformation, disinformation, but how to manage to the strategic communication, which is the most difficult part of the coin. And you cannot work without this second part. It's like when someone is lying and there is a story that the lie goes very fast and the truth is just very slow, right? And it's true, because afterwards, if you read that fact checkers made or somehow said that this is not true, actually no one bothers, because everyone knows the truth, which is not, right? Which is exactly the false things. And I was also, by researching the idea or countermeasure or somehow manage the strategic communication and elaborating the disinformation messages and how they operate, I come up all the time with the psychological thinking, how our brain is working, how we are affected by bias theory, how we believe in fake news and why we believe in fake news. Researchers are provided the data that we are not following by the truth. The truth is not important for human beings. Actually, emotions connected with the messages are more important than the truth itself, the facts. This is the reality, and the social media are what we have heard are very important to spread news, fake news, disinformation news, misinformation news, by fueling with the emotions, and that drivers are very, very influential. The last thing, as an introduction, when I have my lectures with my students, we sometimes draw the line, that you have the line on which, on one side, you have people who believe in everything, on spice theory, 5G theories, and etc., all the things, all the boxes with the whole different things you have. On the other side, you can have people who do not believe in anything. And actually, it's not the line, it's the circle. Those people like connecting psychologically in the same place. Either you believe in everything, either you do not believe in anything. And what Russia is doing, Russia is not saying that this is true and this is not true. Actually, they building or undermining our trust to any news. And this is the key. If everyone lies, Americans, Europeans, and journalists, and researchers, and academics, then they can spread everything. And we are much more vulnerable to that kind of relative thinking. And you probably know Russian language very well if you were researching it. The main message I get from any interviews, from the ordinary people, they say, "Не всё так однозначно." It means that everything is not reliable, right? So they don't know the truth. We are not able to go to the truth. So if you are not able to touch the truth, then everything is happening and you are not have a power to do so. So you are passive. You are like taking your side from everything which is around you. So that's why one of the elements I think that Russians are so reluctant to what is going on because others will decide. The Kremlin will decide what to do because they know better. We don't know, we are not sure, right? And this is the thing that Russia is trying to do in our democratic societies, that we will not believe in anything, in the government institution, and etc. So the key things is like that kind of a conference. I really enjoy that. And exactly gaining the trust again. I will talk about FIMI. I don't know if you know this term. Some of you probably yes, some don't. It is a very important term. It's the acronym of the Foreign Information Manipulation and Interference. Since, the European Union, I joined MFA from the Polish presidency. Now we have presidency for half year in the European Union. I'm very proud of it. But in the European Union, we were struggling with the disinformation, how to counteract with Russian disinformation, etc. And since 2022, researchers, people who are engaged in that field decided that disinformation is not this whole picture. There's much more of it. And much more of it what Russia and others are doing in the European Union, but on a global scale, is exactly foreign information manipulation, because sometimes it's not only fake news. In how you manipulate with the truth, how you give the messages to the audience, and how you can distract from the real what is happening, giving the Matryoshka case, right? There can be a truth inside the small doll, but they are taking back all the things around, and it's very difficult to distinguish what percentages is exactly disinformation and what is only interpretation that mislead others, right? So foreign information manipulation, and the last and the most important, and interference. When we talk and we describe what is actually Russia is doing in the European Union, is more than disinformation. And if you remember the Cold War struggle, you probably have heard about active measures, right? So FIMI is something, not the same thing, but there's something comparable to the active measures, how we approach to the issue. Espionage, the cyber attacks that we are talking about it today, disinformation, of course, and attacking the critical infrastructure, everything what disturbs our political, social life in our democracies. And what is very important, it's not only manipulation of the information, but exactly the interference. This interference is very difficult to distinguish, it's difficult to define. However, we understand that in our very differentiated societies, in every, I think, European and American, Canadian societies, we have very polarized societies, right? So acting to fight with the FIMI is not about censorship. It's actually protecting this external interference to our political life. We can struggle with our political parties, different opinions, critics, and etc. But if there is an external interference, it's something we need to stop. And this is something that democracies need to protect the political sphere, political democracies in our world, because we believe in that and we need to protect that. I will talk about comparison of Poland and 3 Baltic states, but I will not go very deeply into the measures that they take. This is kind of a, for me, element to discuss more than general question, how we can counteract FIMI, how we can actually make this strategy communication working. As you probably know, we are neighbors to Russia, as Ukraine, but not so experienced with the aggressive actions from this country, but we have historical memory of that Russia is imperialistic, is a colonial, and is the country which is all the time trying to expand, because on the other side it thinks that it will collapse. So Russia is expanding because it's so afraid that it will collapse on the other side. And Poland and Baltic states, and it's kind of a general overview that Russia will not spread very positive emotions to Russia because they will not work, just simple. But at the same time, Russia is using everything what is connected with anti. So we can name anti-European messages, anti-Americanism messages, anti-vaccine messages. And that was very important for me to observe that those accounts on Twitter before, now X, that were like spreading anti-vaccine messages, that they are anti-freedom and etc., on day of Russian invasion, they switched to the anti-Ukrainian messages. And you could like see it on the graph that, oh my God, what is happening here, right? So one of the elements is, of course, anti-Ukrainian messages, which works, unfortunately, quite well in the Polish society. We have issues, political and historical issues as well as neighbors. Those emotions are very there. And unfortunately, also opinion polls are showing that that kind of messages are quite effective. One of the messages I remember from the beginning of the war, that Ukrainian women are coming to Poland to steal our husbands. And you know, the one of the group which is the most skeptical towards Ukrainians when you can like divide too many Polish society, it's exactly young women. And my colleagues are an expert. They are saying, oh, it's because they want us. No, it's like a matrimonial rivalry. But it's not. Actually, it is the group that is more affected to not only disinformation, but also the contact people to people. And sometimes there is a competition to schools, to medical services, and etc. So taking all the, thinking about the disinformation, there are groups to which about the strategy communication, we need to think about and somehow give them another message that only they receive from the social media, for example. We have common understanding that Russia is a threat and common activities from the Russian side. Comparing Poland to Baltic states, we do not have Russian speakers, so many. And actually, it's not the political issue. They are not those who are trying to undermine our democracies. However, I would say that we have other problems, other groups which are sympathizing with not Russia particularly, but with anti-messages and anti-globalist, anti-establishment, and Russia is working exactly on that kind of groups. I already told you, and it's kind of obvious thing, that Russia is trying to erode our institutions, democratic institutions, and it's working because sometimes when we read about fake news, I don't like this word, but the false messages, sometimes I come up with the message, with the slogan that it's not new, right? It was every time in our history there were false and good messages. What happened now, what is nothing different. Actually, also research shows that one of the elements which decrease according to use of social media and disinformation and everything which is connected with FIMI is exactly affecting trust to democratic institutions. And this is the key point why we need to also overcome that kind of process. When I will compare Baltic states and Polish attitude, how we can react on FIMI, is exactly very comparable. We have an understanding that actually this is psychological warfare or psychological operations. That's why we need to counteract with the strategy communication. Strategy communication is very difficult to manage. I will tell you from my experience. We did a group in Polish Foreign Affairs that back then I was an expert of Polish Institute of International Affairs, but we had a group of people who were from different sides of the government, but also non-governmental organizations, which was like media, intelligence, the election commission, because we were just ahead of the parliamentary elections in the European Union. And what affected me the most from that experience, we were actually knowing what is going on. We could monitor freely. I mean, we saw what was going on. But from our perspective, it was very difficult. Okay, if we know what we see, if we can elaborate it, we have a numerous wonderful publication on this information. We have a numerous researchers like you who are actually showing us the problem. But it was very difficult for us to manage what kind of message we should go to our electorate. And that was a division of that public administration is having. That, okay, let's consultate between ministry how we should message on that particular issue. Because on many things, we actually know what kind of messages Russia will impose to us. Right? They are working like a machine which is repeating all this time the same stories. And I can draw you that they have like meta-narratives, narratives and messages. And from 2014, they are all the time repeating the same story. And they are not the first who said that if you repeat the lie the 100 times, it becomes a truth, right? But it's working all the time, repeating the same thing. So my question was always like, okay, if we know what we see, if we know all the infrastructure, the presentation, the previous presentation that we have from Telegram, from other places, so how come we are not doing enough to counteract that, to actually learn from our adversaries, which means we need to divide, and it was said today, we need to define or differentiate our messages to particular group of people, like women in Poland, for example, young women in Poland, and other groups, to work not only with the global message that it's Kremlin fault, they did very wrong, but actually how to work with each group separately with the, direct messages, with the not only truth. In our understanding, we also need to take on board psychologists to build the message which will be not only truth, because we already said that it's not the most important, how to build the truth information with the emotions that will affect other people. And the same thing, Estonia is having the national security policies, and the Baltic states are very good example of good practices, because they are small and they have small capacity to react. Why? The government usually complains that they don't have money, they don't have resources, and etc. Actually, Baltic states are showing an opposite. The small capacity, the smaller group of people who are counteracting Russian activities, the FIMI, it's better. I know, maybe not in Estonia, but in the Lithuania, which is also concentrating attention not how to elaborate Russia disinformation, which is already there, and already we've heard about the bank, which is the non-governmental organization, which is very good and active in that arena, in the strategy communication. But the most important is how to communicate in the group of people who are actually quite active and influential in that. So they have a group of people on Signal connected with the very high position officials, and they are, sharing like all the time information if something is happening. Now we did the same in Poland, that to be connected, that have small network of governmental officials on many different spheres to, check us. Do you see the same thing there? Yes. Do you think that it's true what they are doing there? Okay, let's share it between us and react. It's also something which maybe here is not elaborated very freely, but European Union forced us to do so. In 2019, they created rapid alert system, which is something like a Facebook for those who are working on disinformation. So if something is happening happening in France, they are posting it to the special website, which is in the network. They are asking others, do you see the same things, like the farmer protests? And we were watching at it, not as in particular country, but in the whole European Union. But what I would like to stress on and show you how they are wisely using the institutions on one hand, but also bottom-up approach. And you have different types of how the institutional hubs, how they are operating in different governments. So for example, and usually when you have problem in the democracy, you create an institution, which is not always working. But the different countries have different models to tackle with the FIMI. For example, in France, they have centralized institution, which is Viginum. In Poland, the most important group of people and the institution is inside MFA, but there are other models. The best models are always showing that the Sweden and Finland has best practices for that, how to operate on that. But in Lithuania, they have a special unit, which is very highly connected and very well connected with other governmental and non-governmental institutions. Why I'm showing this chart? Because they gave a scale how to react and when to react. So if there is from 0 to 2, it's not very important messages what is spreading in social media or something. So and then they go to 10. In 10 position, they need to alert Prime Minister, because Prime Minister, from his position, he can devote others' work to do to the ministers. From my perspective as an analyst, not as an employee of MFA, I think MFA is not the highest, from my personal overview, the best place. It is very good, but the best is exactly the more connected with the Prime Minister. So maybe you can elaborate it to other countries. And also comparing Poland and Baltic states and some kind of matching the European Union approach for maybe Western democracies, that in Baltic states they have more offensive approach than us. So we do elaborate, we do monitor, we do see the problem. It is very difficult to come up with the strategy communication, what to say. But Baltics are saying, okay, we can say what we want, but actually we need to disturb, and Ukrainians are doing that very well, perfectly, I would say, to work and disturb Russian information cybersphere. So a number of things which are not yet working out with the other European Union countries. Still, we are kind of limiting ourselves to do more, to be much more offensive, much more active in that regard. When it comes to Poland, just to come up with the solutions from 2019, because of the European Union ideas and the circumstances, there was 3 people in MFA who are working on actually disinformation messages connected with the foreign policy. Now we have almost 30, because we realize that 3 people is quite not enough number of those who need to not only monitor, but also to counteract that kind of actions. So we came up with these solutions that we have a special department of the strategy communication fighting with the foreign disinformation. But at the same time, we are proposing during our Polish presidency something which is called Resilience Council. And I think that kind of thing can be spread all over. We are trying to give this model to our European countries on the European level. And what is the Resilience Council? It exactly goes to the approach that 360% that you need to take everyone, not only from the top to the bottom, but also business. And we have psychologists there to not only look at the problem and how to manage the communication messages. And unfortunately, Poland is not immune. Polish people are not immune on Russian disinformation. And sometimes I'm joking that Polish people knows everything about medicine, sport, and Russia. I think we have experience of Russia, and somehow we are not affected to like pro-Russian messages. But unfortunately, that I'm kind of feeling that and being too proud that we Russians will not do anything on our soil. Unfortunately, the results of the survey showed here we are actually not only affected by the Russian disinformation. For example, 13.8% of Poles thinks that the European Union is they captured Polish government and all the sovereignty, which is quite high from my perspective. However, at the same time, we are affected by on the disinformation from energy, climate, health care, and politics, and etc. Still, there is a high support to Ukraine, but it's also decreasing. I look at this process also from the perspective of how Russia is spreading disinformation, but it's not only. I think still we need to manage how to give a proper messages to our audience, to our societies, either to Baltics and to Poland. Thank you very much.